right from the get-go. That was a nice word you put up on the board. Disaster in Denver. Right from the get-go, there were questions about Paul Hackett, the coach. Game management, play calls. Was Russell Wilson hurt? Then all of a sudden, in addition to how poorly they played, they fell apart. Their play calling was miserable. Their game management, use or misuse of timeouts was miserable. The decision making at the line of scrimmage on the pre-snap reads by Russell Wilson was worse. And then they lost their lead running back, Devontae Williams. Then they lost their star left tackle, Garrett Bowles. And all three of their top kid receivers who all have got great speed all got hurt or in and out of the lineup. The Jerry Judys of the world, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton. What a disaster. And they kept losing and they kept losing. And no amount of philosophical discussion at the Monday press conferences by Paul Hackett was going to sell anybody. And then to top everything else, the team quit on him last week. I sat there and I watched that 51-14 Rams rip job on the Broncos. And I said, this guy doesn't get on the plane going home. And by the time that plane landed, he had been removed as head coach. I asked the question, though, because, I mean, football, it's an organizational business. Yes, we know who the head coach is, and we know the star quarterback. But the guys upstairs making the decision, no accountability to the general manager, George Payton. He's the one that hired Hackett from the Green Bay Packers, where he was the offensive coordinator. He's the one that traded the multiple number ones to get Russell Wilson. He's the one that gave Wilson this huge contract extension. It sure looks like Payton made real significant mistakes in assessing that coach or looking at what that quarterback had become in his final twilight years in Seattle. And on top of that, they don't have a number one. The Seahawks own that number one by virtue of the Russell Wilson trade. So Pete Carroll's he's got two number ones in his pocket now. That's amazing. And on top of that, Payton owes Hackett 4 years on his contract. That's not a small amount of money to swallow. And they got Russell Wilson on the contract extension for another 4 years. You think the general manager's on the clock? Should he be on the clock? Yeah. Why does he still have a job?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Denver Broncos are the LA Lakers of the NFL, right? I mean, they really put themselves into a pickle here, trading, all those draft picks, and now they've got a guy that's on the tail end of his career.